divorce or whatnot, but the just being date nights and all of that stuff, I saw that prior. I started seeing the decline of the love between black women and black men around in the mid 2000s.
Okay.
We're actually in the same generation. Yes. And
Yes,
what I've been able to
generation
observe,
X. Y'all trying to write us off.
what I've been able to observe is very similar to what Coach TaShon was saying. But I think one of the differences that I have on my take about what those outward manifestations mean, there are many people who say that the relationships of old were the model because, grandmom and granddad stayed together for 35, 40, 50 years.
Right.
And they're not looking at whether or not those were happy years.
Mm.
And I don't mean that every relationship and every day has to be, cloud nine, because life does give you problems sometimes. But overarchingly, as a premise, many of those relationships were not functional. They were not conducive to the growth of both people. They were dysfunctional, as society tends to say that with a little more levity than they should, considering what that actually means and how that manifests in their interactions. But the problem with those unhealthy relationships is that now women do have the resources to leave. And
Okay.
because those resources to leave are more available, people aren't dealing with the real problems that are causing their relationship turmoil.
Mm.
In a lot of situations, it really is just easier to leave. She doesn't have to deal with his abuse. She doesn't have to deal with his control. She doesn't have to deal with his lack of knowledge of how to say, I love you. She
Mm.
doesn't have to deal with any of that. And when she's able to now leave, that dysfunction of not being able to communicate about real issues is lost in the resources that she now has access to when she didn't before. So I think right now that makes it worse, because when people get out, they really haven't identified the problems that push them out.
Yeah.
Whereas before, you have to stay in this situation. There's no other, there were no options. And that was good or bad in some situations. Some people did actually figure it out and move forward in a
Right.
positive way. Other people stayed in their their stagnation of ignorance with regard to how they relate to each other. But in either situation, there were problems, and the lack of resources forced people to deal with those problems. So now resources are available. They don't have that same necessity to deal with the issues. They're able to leave and move on to other things without addressing those real problems. And the lack of addressment in those real problems manifests in their relationships moving forward.
Well, I guess this is the show because I know. I I did not know. I'm 43, and it wasn't until I got married that I understood my parents' marriage was definitely not good and what I thought it was. You know, I can go back to one of you guys talking about the number of years and how people glorify that number, not knowing the turmoil, the trauma, the abuse, the violence, if there were any. Because again, black community, black house, what goes on in the house stays in the house. So, we paint I'm not going to say a perfect, but a decent picture on the outside a lot and not really being honest with ourselves. And I think that's one of our downfalls. So I commend you guys knowing, but I think one thing that we don't do is educate ourselves. And that's something that I had to do. My marriage forced me to figure out, why am I still here? Why haven't I left? This is not working. God did not create marriage to be this way. And it it took my mom, my counselor, a couple of people to repeat the same thing. If you're not happy, leave. They didn't say it in that sense, but that's pretty much what they was insinuating. And I just had to, take that leap of faith and go. So, with that being said, let's jump into the ugly truth about the separation of black men and women. Guys, it's time to wake up. So,
So can
let
let me interject. What I want people to understand also,
Mhm.
I know we always focus on the long, like people are like, well, the longevity, but it came with this, that, and the other. I want to change that narrative because I knew a lot of couples, including my aunts and so forth, who are still married and they've been married 50 plus years. And I want people to understand, as a certified relationship growth coach, with marriage, you're going to come with trials and tribulations.
right,
And so people do and have stayed in marriages for the duration because they honored the vows. And what people don't understand is the trial and tribulations of marriages. And so we tend to get it twisted and we say, well, they stayed in it. Due to this, that, and the other. Now, of course, God doesn't want you to stay in a marriage that's abusive, physically or verbal, whatnot. And you have had people to leave. But most of the people that I know of that are celebrating their 48th, my aunt who just passed, they were celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary. And I know they had ups and downs.
right,
um, she suffered with cancer and job loss and so forth. So that did take a toll on their marriage. My parents were married; they would have been married 51 years, into both of them deceased, and that came with a lot of trials and tribulations. Both of them had cancer, and they had to, my mother had to live overseas while my dad was in the military. X, Y, and Z. So I want people to understand that with marriage and that longevity, there are good. It's a lot of good with that, but there are trials and tribulations that you're going to go through as a couple. That's going to make your marriage much better because you have to go through a storm with someone. If you're united, connected with that person, you're married, you're going to go through a storm. And so when we see longevity in these men, my grandmother, them, they got divorced. She
mhm,
said they got a divorce because he had an affair. And my granddaddy said it was because my grandmother was nagging. Now they both up in heaven, probably chilling with each other now. So I'm like, okay, my dear, But they both got a divorce after 5 children, and and because my grandmother was like, I didn't want that for her children,
right,
and this is back in the 40, 50s, late 40s, 50s, and so forth. So I want to say there's a balance there that we just don't. Depends on who you are too, because again, I'm a person that saw a combination of both. Some people may just only saw like, oh, okay, well, I seen Aunt Mabel married for 40 some years and they just been through hell and high water, but that's not always the case.
right. And let's see. I'm not sure what's going on with Miss Right there.
While we're working out the technical difficulty, I want to piggyback on the statement that was made just now with Coach TaShon. Yes, marriages will have problems. To make a distinction between the natural vicissitudes in a marriage versus the things that people bring on themselves because of their own dysfunction and poor choices, those are the different things that people should consider when they're looking at why the marriage dissolved or why they got divorced. What you're talking about, someone someone having cancer, someone losing a job, someone suffering a different death in the family. Life
Right.
will knock you down sometimes. And having that marital partner to strengthen you and build you going forward is a blessing, like none other on this side of the coming of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
However, there's some marriages that were not that supportive, that the people were not that supportive of each other in their
Yeah.
relationship. If the man wasn't physically abusive, he would deny the woman's need to hear I love you because he was the provider and felt like it was enough that if he paid for the house and bought food and paid the bills, that she should know that he loves her by those actions.
Yeah.
When he had a different emotional need that he wasn't willing to meet.
Yeah.
In that situation, some women stayed and some women got the resources to leave because
Right.
they began to feel like that was emotional neglect when he knew what she wanted and needed but was unwilling to do it
Yeah.
for whatever reason he had. Those are the differences that I was talking about earlier. And now women have resources to leave and they don't have to stay in a situation where their partner is unwilling to meet them where they are and support them in their relationship. Before, he figured it out. He's like, 20 years I've been married to this woman. I thought it was enough. And now I get that it wasn't. And here we are together 35 years.
Hmm.
That is a growth process,
Yeah.
but not all men are that receptive to what their women would need. And some women now are able to leave rather than stay in a situation where she wasn't being emotionally sustained because he was unwilling to, not incapable, but unwilling to.
Yeah.
Well, so you guys kind of got a little ahead, but I like that because that's actually we can revisit everything you just said when it at the end because I have problem and solve, and so that is one of the problems we're not seeing that what you're talking about, TaShon. Again, you have to. I had to realize myself that even like with my wife, even though I post a lot, she's still conservative. You know, she's not that I don't want all my business out there, but I just don't. I'm not that person, and I'm not that person of I want my business out there, but I get a sense of this needs to be seen because if there isn't no turmoil or if there isn't any problems, there's something wrong. We're either lying to ourselves and lying to each other about stuff that we like because there's no such thing as I ain't saying that people are don't get in a relationship and they are just so alike, but there is still something for one another to say, that rubbed me the wrong way, or I didn't like the way you said that, or I didn't like the way you just ignored me last night, or just small things to cause conflict, which should stem a great healthy resolution. And that's what we're not. That's not what we're getting. Everything is, oh, I don't want to fight for this because I shouldn't have to. It should automatically come with a bow on it, and we should be married for 40 years with no fussing. I hate to hear people like, man, we've been together for 4 years and we ain't fussed yet. That's not a relationship for me, you know. And not saying that you have to fuss, but a possible heated discussion because you're not going to like everything.
I agree. I have a,
So
I have a,
let's get into this then. Woohoo!
yes.
Whitney, did you have a question?
Yes.
Oh, I was saying that to kind of illustrate what LaRon was saying, I have a phrasing
Okay.
that I like to use to address that very notion. I say very simply, intelligent thinking people do not always see eye to eye. So
Mm,
there definitely be some times that even married people in healthy relationships don't agree on everything. So
right.
I think that's important for people to understand. And oftentimes, how you work to resolve a disagreement is more important than what the disagreement actually is.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask Laurent,
Mhm.
you mentioned that you wanted to show social media.
Well, it's not even social media. It's just in general, and it just so happened that social media has that access to show some of the stuff that I do show,
Mhm.
but I do it all the time. Even when we're out, I'm holding her hand, I'm opening the door, I'm saying, um, I'm being my natural, loving. That's my wife, and we get a prime example where she works. I normally try my best to, when she has lunch, eat lunch with her.
Mhm.
And so we were getting a sub, and the lady was like, "Man, you know what? I love y'all. I was just telling my husband, there's this man that come up here with his wife every lunch. You ain't brought me lunch yet." And I think it was the next day, she we were having lunch and she came and told us that, hey, funny thing, my husband came up and had lunch with me. And so that's what I mean about that. It's not that because we don't see it. We really
So when
don't.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Because Instagram, and we talked about this on the show a lot, how even with business, Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and stuff, it shows sometimes the end results, but it doesn't show how you got there.
So when you say, I guess for me, when you say you don't see it, are you because again, I think it's I know generally we're speaking of the general population, but even with the general population, um, is it that you haven't been surrounded or
No,
haven't
I have not. No, I don't see
okay.
it. Yeah,
Okay,
I
so
see it
just
out there. I've come across it out there, which again,
mhm.
hint, uh, I would say a couple of treatments that I went to and we had lunch, we saw that up in Atlanta. I see it mostly, especially here where we're at. The holding hands, the going out on dates is normally with people.
With who?
Right.
Okay, so that's what I want to understand because for me, I see it all the time.
Mm-mm. Yeah, I don't
And
see it.
so so I don't know if it's like regional or even
It
when
is.
I was
It's
in
regional.
California, I saw it. Even wherever I live, I saw it. So that's why I'm trying to understand, like when you're saying that you don't see it.
Yeah.
I don't know, Whitney, do you see it?
Much of what I see as far as, hmm, how do I break this out? When I'm, if I see people in a relationship, if they are African American people,
Hmm.
they are walking together with food. So
Yep.
holding hands is kind of hard when you have fries in this hand
Yep.
or a Slurpee over here or a shake or something like that. But
Yep.
the way that they're not rushing through, the way that they've slowed down their pace to make a conscious effort to spend that time together, that is an intangible form of their hand holding. So if they're not holding hands physically exactly, I still get the point by their interaction that they're relishing this time together. Now I have seen many white couples hold hands, but they were older, like like
Yeah. Yeah. Fairly older. That on my point too with that. Yeah.
and
That's interesting.
some of the younger couples, some of the younger white couples that I've seen, just regular, just out, just wherever, they're usually playing, you know, and he's moving around her or something, and he's like pushing her, and then she's moving so that she doesn't get pushed. Like they're playing tag between just them two, you know. So that's another intangible type of hand holding, but their interaction is definitely deliberate, and they're spending that time together, even if it's not a physical, technical holding of hands.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
for sure.
I guess because I'm not sure where like I get what you're saying
No,
because
no, no. And I so, but
I,
that's the difference. So,
right,
and
and I think because again the portrayal on television or whatnot, we don't see the couples like we did in the late 80s with the shows, Cosby Show, even James in Florida, Evans, things of that nature. So we don't see that now. Um, However, I never relied on television for those images. And so for me, um, that's what I say. I mean, I understand what you're saying because I think what I'm seeing from your perspective is you want to see more black love, you know,
yes,
displayed. However, I see a lot of black love, and I'm not talking about on social media.
right.
So and and it could be, um, I don't know. I mean, I do see everybody. Honestly, I do see.
It's
But
you're right though. You made a point. It's regional. And again, down here, and I make it my best effort to when I do see it, which is
mhm,
small, I
mhm,
commend them and I
mhm,
tell them thank you. Even with the younger couples, I'll pull them over to the side, and I've had a couple of talks within the past 5 years with a couple of just random young couples that have shown that, and it seemed like it was genuine, and
mhm.
just not because I think he's cute and I think she's sexy type thing. And then the older couples that you can see, yeah, to what I'm pretty sure, and some have said we've battled some stuff to get to where we're at now.
Yeah.
But here is like,
And then too, consider the person. 'Cause I'm not a public affectionate person.
mhm,
I'm not. I'm one of those people that I'm private, right?
right.
And it's not that I dislike it, but like Chef would, he doesn't necessarily hold my hand, but he will slap me on the butt or do all of the stuff. And I'm like, "Will you stop?" Like, even though I know it's cool and nice doing this, I have accepted that because I'm like, here it is. This man loves, my body, X, Y, and Z. But when it's in the public,
Nisa, you muted.
I've been that
Oh,
person that's like, okay, I'm private. I don't want, you know. So maybe that's a combination of, you see people that are not into the public, display of affection too. You see what I'm saying? So it maybe
yeah,
that could be as well. But I mean, I understand what you're saying. Um,
yeah. And I
and
can see your point too.
yeah.
And that's why I said it is regional. Because even when I went to Mississippi and stayed for those
Mhm,
2 years,
mhm.
man, that was the hardest, rough show of black love I ever seen in my entire life.
Really?
Yes, it
Wow.
was like, and it even stemmed all the way down to the kids. Like they were swapping each other. Like it, it was sad.
Mm,
And but Miss Nisi, before I asked that question that TaShon just asked, let me. Ms. Wright said it's symbolic of valuing each other.
mhm,
Jalissa stated, I don't see it either unless it's older people.
mm.
Jalissa, I'm 42, I'm 52, try to make you young, girl. And I don't see many people my age out here, definitely not people of color. And she's in Oklahoma.
Mm.
Right.
Okay.
Can I add
So,
one quick thing?
uh-huh.
While we're talking about societal depictions of Black love, I think we should definitely consider that there is a rampant misrepresentation of what love really is in
Oh,
the Black
yes.
community, particularly on social media.
Yes,
I
yeah.
commented on one of the groups that I'm in for the different types of talks that we get into in our topics. I suggested to the person who posted something. It was a very sensual picture, and the caption was about relationships. And I suggested to that person that when you equate the substance of a relationship with this visual sensual image, you're arousing the wrong type of emotion,
Right.
because you're making that person attach love and the substance of a relationship to something sexual.
Mm.
And if anything, that needs to be severed. People need to understand that those two things don't have to be inexorably connected the way that social media tends to gravitate them and funnel them into being. It seems like for most of what I've seen as far as black relationships on social media, when they're talking about love, the image is sex,
Mhm.
and that is destructive and unhealthy. And when people don't realize that that takes them down the wrong spiral, they set themselves up for a lot of work that they have to undo when it comes to a real substantive love relationship.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
So Nisi,
Hey,
TaShon
Lisa.
asks,
Hey.
TaShon asks, do you see black love when you're out and about, regardless, preferably in person, but online? Do you come across or in contact with true black? Well, what you think is true black love?
I think so.
Okay.
And it might be
Wait, hold that thought, baby. We need to move.
say we need to move. Look, y'all don't see black love?
Bruh.
No, okay. It may be how I surround myself. So
Yeah.
I get to see TaShon and her husband. I get to see you and your wife. And the couples that I do see very healthy couples, and I see unhealthy couples. And then I see your singles, but I do get a chance to see black love. They said the dating pool got pee in it. But I don't think that goes for everybody. It is out there, but I don't think they portray it on like social media.
They don't.
What you see on social media is like Evelyn said, the combination of like
It's trash.
trash, sex, and
Trash.
it does cause a division.
Absolutely.
Lisa
Baby,
said,
Yeah, I
let's
think
baby,
it
baby,
travel.
causes
baby heard
a
it. Let's travel,
division.
baby. And again, and I before we go on, in which we are finna, uh, Nisi stated clearly, and my let me go back and say you're right, because Nisi, you guys, TaShon, the little party that we had again, but we had to step outside of here. The the couples that we are in tune with and that we see and that we get inspiration from, they're not here. And we're in contact with them. Matter of fact, thank you to Sean. Uh, we just got business coaches for us, and
Okay.
they're a couple, love them to death, black couple. And so again, it's like everybody's outside of Albany, and it's just Albany is a very
Well, guess what you're gonna do? Guess what you and
I'm
Lisa
changing it.
are set to do?
I'm
You're setting the example, because I'm pretty sure other people are probably thinking the same, that are
yeah.
sitting at home and saying, you know what, there are no black couples out here. So I believe God places you where you're needed.
Oh yes,
You
yes, 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 yes,
know what
yes,
I'm saying? And
yes.
I think with you and Lisa, you all are setting examples for people that are around you, but may not say anything, but may have the courage one day to say, you know what, let me connect with them. I just believe there is like there is there's a
Why you
I know Whitney
lying?
can
You need to stop
sum this up for
lying.
me, because I be long winded. I be
See,
trying.
yeah,
Whitney
I'm
be
good.
having the answer to it. I don't know, Whitney.
I
Can you
was telling
tell
my
me?
wife stop lying, but but it's
Oh,
I'm gonna have to have Whitney as
we
my
need more of
interpreter.
that though. We definitely need more couples because um and I think it's the type of people you surround yourself with, you
Yeah.
know.
Again, that's why
So
I'm so happy I have you guys, because
yeah.
I'm
I
surrounded by you guys. You might be distant, but I know how
and
to reach out and say, hey, I need some couple love.
And vice versa, because I learned from you all. Again, I'm a very private person, and I've even had talks with Janice, and I remember in the beginning, I was like, Janice, I don't know how to, child, I don't know how to let loose. And Janice would give me some advice on whatnot, even your wife, Lisa. So we learn from each other because
right,
even though this is my second marriage, again, I'm learning to, be publicly okay with holding my husband's hand or
Right,
hug him or even kissing him in public.
right.
Whereas before I'm like, oh my gosh, did he just kiss me in front of everybody? Did he grab my butt in front of everybody?
oh oh,
'Cause
me and
that
my
was
husband lip lock. We'll be right on in public.
Yep,
My kids be disgusted. They be like,
yep.
look,
I just walked my baby to her class at college and said, give me a kiss. Mm-mm.
see, so I learned from you all, and it's cool. I like it, and it brings me back to where I saw my. Now, for me, I didn't see my parents be affectionate like that, but I also saw my aunts and uncles be publicly affectionate. So it depends on, your household or whatnot. Again, I come from a very private family. Wasn't nothing wrong with that. That just came from the privacy of my dad's side of the family. Literally, are private people to this day. So, but I learned from you all. I think it's awesome that we can do that no matter what stage of our marriages we're in.
Miss
right,
Wright says social media depictions are based solely upon materialistic things that are inconsequential in real relationships. Ooh, look at me saying big words. Everyone has value, but social media centers it on being high value. I can
See?
agree with that. I know some nice couples here that are beautiful in black love. Yes, I should introduce you to them. Yes, you've been holding out on me. See, it be your own people. I'll be out here struggling. And ooh, boy, I tell you. No, seriously, if we can't influence those close to us, then we're not doing enough locally. And yes, baby,
you know what?
that's trying to get her out of her shell. I am not a PDA person. You are with me, so you might as well get used to it.
Look,
Uh, I am private. Yes, no, you are not. I'm sorry, guys. We don't mean to fight on the line, but yes. Jalissa says, surround itself with surrounding self with like-minded people is a great thing.
you know
And
what?
Ms. Rice said, public display of affection are announcements to the partner in the world that this person is with me. So if y'all can see this big whoa,
Yeah.
and if you can kind of see the little dark picture in the background, you know where I'm headed.
Oh, this gonna be good.
All right. The legacy of slavery and white supremacy has had a profound impact on the relationship between African American women and men. Where did it start? Enslaved Africans were forcefully removed from their homes, families, and cultures and were subjected to brutal and inhumane treatment. This created a sense of disconnection from their heritage and traditions and left them vulnerable to manipulation and exploration. The false belief that African Americans are inferior has been, um, just thinking, word, perpetrated through generation of symptomatic racism, including segregation, Jim Crow laws, and mass incarceration. These institutionalized forms of discrimination have reinforced negative stereotypes and further damaged the system of African Americans. What do y'all think about that statement before we head over?
I agree with it 100%. Absolutely. And when you consider, one of the things that many people don't talk about regarding slavery was how deliberate the actions were to destroy the black family, to destroy the family unit among enslaved people. And on the other side of it, I have heard, particularly certain young white women will say, I'm going to college to get my MRS, because they had an understanding, at least, of what the family unit meant. And even if there were problems, the family unit was still something that they could say, this is, this is mom, this is dad, I know who I am, I know where I'm from. And that entire self identity was stripped away from enslaved people during those processes that you just outlined. That is absolutely factual.
What you think, Sean?
Listen, I know. I mean, I agree with what Whitney said. For me, um, I like to move forward with that, and I say that we have the power now to change that narrative. I agree. A lot of my white colleagues, the women, they going to college. They already know what they want. They know they're going to get that husband, that marriage, that family, and whatnot with no problem. We tend to. I've noticed that we as the women, African American women, we have this set agenda that often leaves out the man.
Mm,
Um, or if we do have the agenda with the man, we have to give this explanation of why we want a man, why we need a man, right? And so, um, unfortunately, it did do the damage to us, and we have not healed from it. We know that we have not healed from the trauma of that, and it has been passed down, unfortunately.
mhm,
However, I'm in the stage of my life. I tell you all the time that we're going to change the narrative of that. What is happening now? What can we do now to instill the love between black men and black women? I talk to my nieces all the time, and I let them know, hey, you don't have to get married, but if you want to get married, it's okay to, need and love and want a man. It's okay to marry and have a family. If you don't want children, it's okay. So giving them this permission to live and not say, not do what they've been conditioned to seeing in the last 10, 20 years. And just giving them the okay that, hey, if you want to get married, if you want to go find your Prince Charming, it's okay, do it.
right.
Let's do it. But now we know what to look, and not just for our women, but for our, young boys as well, young men. So that's my take on it. Again, I know we've been traumatized by that, and we have not. Of course, we haven't healed from it. However, we can still heal it, and we can choose to continue to heal from the the um, the past. The trauma.
Right. So, what about you, Miss Niece?
Oh, okay. So, I love that cup. But excuse me. Got some. I love it. I love it. But I totally agree with you both. I think when you look at how far it goes back, it was almost like a business proposition. So like when
It
you
was.
think about it, think about it. When you're designing a business, you design it from beginning to end. Now, the rest of the people might not know what your end goal is, but
Mhm.
you know. So if I can separate everybody, so guess what? I'm gonna let the light skinned ladies stay in the house.
Mhm.
They're gonna be outside. So
Mhm.
now I'm hot, I'm thirsty, and I'm looking at my sister like, what make her better?
Yep.
And then you have now I have many husbands because you done sold this one. So after a while, I'm getting raped by master, and he's not protecting me. At least that's what it looks feels like to me because I'm the one suffering from it.
Right.
So I'm not getting protected. So now my respect for him is less and less and less. And he doesn't have any respect for her either because he's like, why you didn't fight master? You just
Mm.
let him go in there. You just
Wow.
carrying the baby, you know. And so now you're pitting our men against each other. Who's stronger than the rest? So you got all these men chest out. Like we can't have a simple disagreement. It leads to other things. So if I can destroy everything, I can steady take the male out of home. Guess what? We're conditioned that they're not that important. They leave anyway, even though in the beginning it wasn't even by choice. Over time, we got so conditioned, and like I agree with TaShon, we have to get to a place where we're healing because we're not there anymore.
Right.
You know, and somebody got to sit up there and say, look, it might have been my granddaddy or whatever, but we have to get to a place where we're loving on each other because we're not there anymore.
Yep.
Guess what? Even though I was conditioned that men are never around, I knew what I didn't want. So that's how I behave. You know, I don't want to sit up there and be disrespectful to my brothers. I don't, you know, and so and my sisters too. Because why are we the crab in the bucket mentality? Because we've been conditioned that oh, light skin, she thinks she better. No, she human just like me. There's no difference. So I agree with TaShon. Like I think I done mixed up the nickname and the actual name. TaShon. I did it twice. I did it twice. I had to correct myself. We have to show love now.
Yeah.
We have to show love now. Like what better time to do it than today, right now. We don't have to wait until it'll take us 500 more years. Not if we all give it a little.
That's an excuse.
Yeah.
An excuse.
It's
As Wright
excuse-itis.
states, it becomes a core belief. Wifey says this is a reflection of trauma, and in some ways, maybe we don't show affection in front of others because we often got in trouble for being PDAers and showing love. Hi, I didn't think about that. Amongst each other and the public. It is PTSD response that is somewhat embedded in us, not on purpose, that we don't do it. I think that us definitely having this conversation now is the first step. And that's it. I think we should have more conversations, these unsettling conversations that makes us not only even with adults, but definitely with kids. And even I'm not going to say dumbing it down, but putting in words to where those that are comprehending stuff that this is having some form of comprehending conversation in this sense because there I'm going to play a video about how wife sent me that a child was explaining this very thing. So women, African women were often forced to work in the fields alongside men, which led to a blurring of traditional gender roles. This new dynamic challenged traditional gender roles as women were not longer rele- uh, relegated to domestic duties and were able to participate in labor intensive work. However, this did not necessarily lead to equality between men and women, as women were still subjected to patriarchal control and often received less pay than men. The sexual exploitation of African women by white slave owners and overseers also had a profound impact on their relationship with African men. You guys are being kind of psychic. I did not send this thing to y'all, and y'all are just tearing it all up. Okay, I love you though. Women are often subjected to rape and sexual abuse, and the resulting children were often sold away from their mothers. This created a sense of mistrust and trauma between African men and women. as men were unable to protect their loved ones from this violence. So let's talk women. I am going to it's three of you guys. So the last two, just ask all three of you. But TaShon, society has um this damn excuse me, this word here,
Perpetuated.
perpetuated. I can't stand this word, even the pronunciation part of it. Perpetuated harmful stereotypes about black men and black women, which have contributed to a sense of division and animosity between the two groups. What is your take on that?
Society has perpetuated harmful stereotypes. I said it's a combination. It's a combination. It says society has perpetuated harmful stereotypes about black men and black women, which have contributed a sense of division. I would say it's a combination of our past. Um, Again, as Nancy stated earlier, what we've been conditioned to seeing over time has contributed to the sense of division. If we're constantly shown images of one thing I can respect of James Evans' character. Um, he left Good Times because he said that he was tired of Norman Lear's them and the writers giving him this every week he's looking for a job and he can't provide for his family and so forth. So he said that
Right.
he had to walk away from that because he knew that was not true. And so the images that were put out there, over time. So I would say it's a combination of society, media, um, within our own circles, because let's be honest, a lot of us have created the narratives within our own homes.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk bad and down against our own people. So I can't just say that it was the white man and the white woman that did it, but a lot of us that did it, we'll be the first one, girl, hide your purse, such coming over, girl, such, or, versus having the conversation of, okay, well, your aunt or your uncle, they're dealing with drug, usage or this, that, and other. So I would say it's a combination, not just society, but media and a lot of the facets that we've dealt with or dealing with.
Okay. I will to be honest with you, I would think society is pretty much it. Like that is the both of it is because society was them and still has been, and we've just bought into it. Miss Whitney, black men and black women have different experiences with racism and discrimination, which can create tension and misunderstanding between them. What's your take?
Absolutely, yes. I agree with that 100%. And for one example, we're talking about a black man being able to find work. Like Coach TaShon was saying, I respect John Amos for leaving Good Times for the same reason. I really appreciate that. And Terry Crews also in recent years, he
Yeah.
won't play a character if that character is gonna die at the end of the movie. Be-
Right. No, wait, hold on. Do you mean the beginning of the movie? Black folks always died at the beginning.
Right, but Terry Crews was saying that if his character was going to die, he didn't want to play it.
Right.
There were
Right.
too many images of black men dying over and over and over and over, and he did not want to perpetuate that. So that's
Right.
a similar notion as John Amos had with the work. But as far as for black men being having difficulty finding and securing work because they're discriminated against, especially if they've been convicted of an upcharged felony,
Mm.
now they're unable to find work. And so that's something that they're dealing with from their experience. But here's the black woman who does have stable employment, But every day she goes into work, somebody else is making a different comment about her hair, about her dress, about
Right.
the way she speaks, about everything else. So now she's carrying all of these burdens from her job that if she responds to that person, she's going to be vilified and risk losing that job, even if the person was wrong. Even if everything that everybody said to her was wrong, if she speaks up about it, she's going to be villainized. She has to carry that home now. So now, when she's home with her guy who can't find a job at all, he's about to tell her, you need to be grateful for the work that you got because they won't hire me. So this is definitely a misunderstanding between them because he will never understand the burden that she carries in and out of her office every day because he's dealing with a different burden that shields him from looking at her experience through her shoes and the way she's experiencing it versus just what he is determining the value of from his own view.
Right.
So absolutely number two is true. Absolutely it is.
Jalissa says that show the struggled love. I think she was
Yeah.
referring to the definitely the show Good Times. And it's funny that you said that because me, well, I wasn't. Lisa and the kids were watching an episode the other day, and he was actually looking for a job.
I love Good Times. I watch every episode. I love it.
Lisa says, I feel that society is the negative entity at this point. Who are they to decide how and who we love our men and where we love our black men and women? And Miss Nisi, you are up, and yours is the media often portrays black men and black women in negative and stereotypical ways, which can exacerbate the feeling of division and mistrust between them.
Oh, totally agree. Totally agree. Like when you were just talking about the man that doesn't work, doesn't work and the woman goes to work. Then you have the flip side of that, dope boy, the one that makes all the money and he cheats and he's just but he got the money.
Right.
So it's taught us, you know what? I can devalue myself for $1. You
Hmm.
know, at least I'm not broke. At least I can buy these nice clothes and these nice shoes. And I can get me a BBL and I can, get me these big stupid red shoes because because he loved me and he got money. So then it further makes you look at your friends. Well, like I don't want that struggle, love. They
Yeah.
over there struggling. Yeah. Ray, he working hard. He's in between jobs, but he thoroughly loves his wife. So I see it differently. You'll get don't nobody want to see that part.
Yeah.
Where a husband and wife or boyfriend and girl are really on the grind. They're not cheating. They're not selling drugs. They're not on the struggle, but he might not make that much money, and neither does she.
Right.
But they don't want to see that. That ain't what they want to see. They want to see the dope boy.
Yep.
They want to see the football player. I want one too, so I'm willing to accept whatever comes along with it, just for me to have it. Oh, my body's not good enough. I don't want to see the normal looking one. All of a sudden, now she looks fat. She looks misproportioned. She's linebacker material. I'm
Right.
going to trim all mine off because I can afford to do so. And so it seems like the way social media portrays it, like regular will never be good enough.
Hmm.
What they deem as regular,
There
regular
you go.
9 to 5 people, you got to
Normal.
yeah, you look, you out here making delicious pies, not vegan, but anyway, you got chef, you got a therapist, like you got all these people that have what they think is regular.
Yeah.
That's no good. We need her out there shaking that booty. We need
Yeah.
her twerking.
Yep.
We need her doing the work, and she need to have it as tight as humanly possible. And if I say something about her butt, you better not say nothing because you can lose that job.
Yeah. And that's what they've designed to be normal. And if
Right.
we're not doing that, then we're weird.
Yeah.
But then on top of that, when you do it, you still get chastised though, depending on who you are.
Yep. What they call you broke.
Huh?
They call you. They'll call you broke. If
Oh,
you
bro, yeah,
do,
yeah,
if
yeah.
you have
That's
a regular, I don't care. It's crazy. It baffles me now. You can be driving a Honda.
right.
That's what you driving.
Yeah.
When did what? I can't afford to
Honda is
actually
a
buy.
very dependable car.
And so now people are even risking themselves now. They're going in severe debt just to say that they have it.
Right.
And part of most of that, a lot of that is because we don't know who we are and whose we are.
Mm.
Right.
Woo, stop it.
Because the word tells you, and again, I'm a believer. The word tells you that you are enough, and you are created in His image. Like, and so we take that out of we don't apply that, and then we wonder why society don't like me or whatever. And it's because first of all, we're not supposed to be pleasing man. That we're not supposed. We're never going to be enough for the world. If you look
Right.
at, I've been obese since birth. Okay, I've
Mm.
been obese since birth, according to the charts and everything else. And so there was a period in my life where I battled weight because of what you know and before social media hit the scene, right? So I was pulling, I don't know about the other, I was pulling out magazine pictures. I remember I was in my studio apartment downtown Atlanta, and across my wall, my studio apartment, I filled up my wall with these magazine images, black and white models images. So the maintenance man would come in, and one day he said, "Can I ask you a question?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Are you gay?" Said, "No, why you at?" He said, "'Cause you got all these women up on your wall like this." Literally, it was wallpaper, right? And then I'm pretty sure he saw all my recipes for all the cabbage soup diets, and I was on Fin and everything. I went through this period trying to get what the people wanted me to, be, but I had to go back to that word and say, "Wait a minute, God created me, right?" And so once you detox from society, once you detox from what you think is the norm, and once you become okay and know who you are, the world is not going to matter because when you look at the world, you like y'all stupid. Y'all going to go to hell and haywire. I'm trying to go with you because the
Right.
stuff that y'all are implanting. And so that's why it's very important. You all have and I have nieces and nephews. But Evelyn, I'm not sure. Do you have children?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay,
I have nieces and nephews.
right. So
You
me and
want
you
some?
have to keep.
Got that chocolate. You want
So
it.
you all have your children to continue ministering to and talking to. Me and Evelyn have the duty of making sure that we implement this for our nieces and nephews so they can understand. You are beautiful. How if you want to go get a BBL, get it because you want to, not because Instagram told you had to do this.
Right.
I don't want you to have one, but if you just want one, don't do it for anybody else. Or, you are fine the way you are. Let's celebrate who God created you to be. So I think once we detox, and when I say detox, we have to take a hard look at who God created us to be. Celebrate from our hair follicles down to our toenails. I was looking at my feet the other day and I was like, oh, I got 1 foot like my dad and 1 foot like my mama.
Mm.
I was like, ew. But guess what? They have now. You could go get your toes readjusted. You could go get anything done. Now, some people toes do need, I'm not gonna lie, it might need a little readjustment. I'm just kidding.
Look,
No, I'm just kidding,
look,
y'all.
a couple of
But
braces.
right. So when you think about how we can fit everything on our bodies that we don't like, or because we have heard someone to say, "Oh, your nose too big." One thing I'm not gonna say I regret. Now I did have to get braces. I had a gap like my father, right? But my gap kept widening, And I was like, oh, daddy, I love you, but I can't deal with the three finger gap. His was normal gap, right? But my teeth started to spread. So I had to go get braces. And I still have a little gap. But I remember somebody said, why did you close your gap? That's a trait from your father. And I was like, well, I didn't want to, but my teeth unfortunately were spreading. But I do know people who are like, I hate my nose, I hate my head, I hate this, that, and other. So to me, you're telling God that you hate what He created. And so once we learn to detox and be safe and be okay of who we are, these issues will go away within our own community and our own circle. And they only start, like I always tell you, it starts with one person, and that starts with us, and it will spread. It will spread. The message will spread. It's going to spread in Albany. It's going to spread on the South Side. It's going to spread in Alabama. It's going to spread right here in Smyrna. It's going to spread. You see what I'm saying?
Lisa says, oh, wait, hold on. Yes, we equally receive negative um, connotations as Black men and Black women. Yes, Evelyn, this definitely speaks to our misunderstanding. Mr.
Mhm.
Johnny Prince, what's up, sir? Love you. Thank you for coming in. We put so much like and trust into society is
Yes.
sickening. Jalissa states, so amazing to me that a lot of Black men didn't know about the hair situation for Black women.
Mhm.
Um, Ms. Rice says, is to prevent the unity of the Black family. So social media today has us pitted against each other. In the 60s, the men were sent to Vietnam or jail, and the women had to find employment to support the
Mhm.
family. Then abandoning women and children became popular. Still happening today. Um, Jalissa added me too. I had a subscription
Oh,
to Vogue.
yep. Oh, all those magazines.
I'm gonna do this one. The history of slavery and racism in the United States has created a legacy of trauma and pain that can manifest in the relationship between Black men and Black women. So it goes back to everything that you guys just stated with the first two and three. Um, Trauma. I know, and TaShon, I definitely hear you loud and clear with the moving on and healing now. But what I've learned, definitely from going to counseling and going to school to be a counselor, which I probably still may end up going back and doing. Um, the trauma. We can't find self. We can't heal self if we don't identify with the trauma. And what society does for us is hide our trauma. Our trauma is hidden, our trauma is misleading, our trauma is like
It's judged.
diluted and almost to the point that it doesn't exist. To why are you still mad? That was 100 and some years ago. That was 1,000 years ago. Matter of fact, I don't even remember it happening. Why are y'all bringing this stuff up? Because you are hurting my kids when you bring this stuff in school, telling our kids that such things like this happen. It did. So, like, even with me, I came up in a family where I saw trauma. I didn't recognize trauma until afterwards, but I knew there was something going on there. Um, it caused me to have issues with myself that now as an adult after sitting, reading, going to counseling, realize, dang, uh, my parents were messed up. Heck, my grandparents were messed up. If I dig a little bit deeper, my great grandparents were messed up. And you really can't say this about everybody's parents on the level of trauma, but we run from it. And to this day, we still do that, you know?
I have a quick thought
Sure.
that I would like to interject at this junction. With regard to the brutality of slavery, There are two camps of people.
Hmm.
One camp says, oh, it's horrible. Why are those overseers mistreating those slaves? Why are they given so little to eat and sustain themselves when they engage in this backbreaking work all day? Why are they given so little water? Why are they treated so horribly? That's what the first camp says.
Uh-huh.
The second camp says, why are human beings treated as slaves? That is the distinction between those two premises is the foundation of where things are right now.
Are you meaning that I see I don't see color?
No, African Americans in general have been so dehumanized that people have justified doing the bad things to them
Oh
that
yeah.
they did. That's why it's so important to this racism issue that black people are supposed to be inferior, because you wouldn't treat a human being that way.
Right.
So to justify doing this to a an African American human being, they must not be equal to white humans.
Right.
So to put them down and to create this inferiority notion in them will justify some of the people's will silence some of the people's consciousnesses about what's happening to these people. If you remember this movie called A Time to Kill, starring Samuel Jackson
Oh
Right.
and
yeah.
Matthew McConaughey,
Hmm.
Samuel Jackson's character played a father whose young daughter was attacked and raped and beaten by a group of white men.
Yep.
Matthew McConaughey played the lawyer who defended Samuel Jackson's character when he went to the court to get justice, and two security guards ended up dying. They were going to charge him with murder for those security guards. And when, as a defense attorney, Matthew McConaughey went through the graphic nature of what had happened to Samuel Jackson's daughter, he told this white jury, look at everything bad that's happened to her. Now imagine that she's white.
Mhm.
That made the difference in so many people's mind, because for a long time, black people were not seen as whole people. They were relegated to animals, relegated to being inferior, relegated to everything but a whole human being. And that was so that those two original camps, why are the slaves treated so bad and why are there slaves? Those two camps couldn't come together on that point because of the way that black people were treated in general. And it became a notion of they're not humans, they're animals. So you can treat them like you can leave them out in the back. You can give them just a little bit of water. You can give them just a little bit of whatever. That mentality has not gone away. Legally it's not supposed to exist, but in everyday practice it does still exist, very very really, very tangibly. And when we deal with the idea that there are white people living today who do not consider black people whole human beings, that isn't necessarily just our trauma as black people to overcome. They have to stop doing that.
Right.
It has to be a societal action that's going to move progressively to move society forward. And here we enter critical race theory.
Mm.
Critical race theory does not teach hate, it does not teach division. Asks a simple question: how does race factor into outcomes that are supposed to be objective and fair?
Now,
As
Miss Wade,
simple as that.
why would you say such a thing like that when you know critical race theory? It just it bullies little white kids and makes no sense.
And that is again the same thing that happens if white people or whatever majority is manipulating this control, if they want people to stop thinking about critical issues, all
Yep.
they have to do is vilify that issue. If you turn that issue into something negative, you can turn masses against it before they even recognize what it is. That's the same thing they did with the slaves, with the people who were enslaved. Once you turn a lot of people against the idea that these are humans, inhumane treatment becomes acceptable because they're inferior, they're less than, they don't deserve everything that a whole human being would. And it's that mentality that conversations like this go toward dismantling. And it has to be on larger scales than where we are. Where we are is good. I'm not saying that it's not helpful and useful for us to have these conversations. We also need to have these conversations on a platform with a big white audience.
Right.
I've heard preachers get in the pulpit and talk about how God does not appreciate when his children are quantified and valued by race, when he's saying that to minorities. Minorities already accept that. They aren't the problem. That message needs to go to the white people and
Right.
those others who are perpetuating these structures and the ones who seek to vilify efforts to dismantle that infrastructure.
All right. So go ahead and knock this last one out, Ms. Whitney. Social with Let's Talk Women.
Mhm.
Social and economic inequality can also create tension between black men and black women, as they may have different experiences with poverty, unemployment, and access to education and healthcare.
Yes, absolutely, that is true as well. One of the problems that this can create is back to the example that we were talking about before. If a black woman has a job and she's able to generate a consistent income, and the man that she is dating is not, suppose they're not married. Suppose they're still technically, for tax purposes, single people.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be an economic divide between them because she should be moving into upper middle class income earning and things of that sort, while he's still considered lower income. And that socioeconomic divide between them will likely cause some of her friends to say, "Woman, why are you dating this man who can bring nothing to your life except the title of boyfriend?"
Right.
And now, for her successes, which she is walking on eggshells every day going into certain offices, but looking like she's successful, for her successes, she gets to pat herself on the back like, I'm better than he is, and I don't need him because he's not going to do anything for me. Now, she may not have come to that conclusion on her own if she was dating him and willing to work with whatever his financial situation was. But there are black women and women in general, but specifically since we're talking about black women, there are black women who have shifted their value from having a man to having a job.
Mm-hmm.
And when she believes that she is on top of the world because of this job she has, she could begin to belittle him for not being able to make the same type of money that she's making, to not for not being able to maintain the same type of work that
Right.
she is. So now her job has given her this sense of this sense of ownership is not the word. It's this sense of personhood. This job has given her a sense of personhood and value as a person, whereas before in past generations, and even some still today, women can find that personhood in a relationship. There are women who say, I'm worthless until I get married and become somebody's wife.
Right.
I of myself don't have any value until I have some children, and then that gives me value as a woman. Put the marriage aside, put the kids aside. There are women who are finding their worth in a job. So now she feels like I'm everything that I need to be. I don't need you. I don't need you. I don't need you. What can you do for me? And if I cannot get a good answer to that question, you can hit the road. And if he has been convicted of a felony from up charges, or even if he's in school, not quite finished, in a field that will never make as much money as she's making because of the industry that she's in versus the industry he's in. This is another thing that's going to contribute to the economic differences between the two. And unfortunately, on his side of it, while her friends are telling her, you make all this money, you have all this job, why do you need this man who's bringing nothing? His friends are telling him, you're struggling, but you're a good dude. Why do you want to hang out with this bougie bitch? Not listening to anything you want to say. So absolutely, there are social and economic differences that contribute to the separation between black men and black women. Absolutely, there are.
Hmm. So, our next thing is men. Enslaved African men were subject to extreme levels of brutality, exploration, and dehumanization, which had lasting impacts on their mental, emotional, and physical well being. The separation of families was one of the most devastating consequences of slavery. It was common for slave owners to sell enslaved men, women, and children to different locations, often hundreds or thousands of miles apart. The separation of families meant that African men and women, often unable to maintain relationships with each other and other or raise their children together, which had long-term impacts on their emotional well-being. The trauma of slavery and white supremacy has been passed down through the generations, creating a sense of collective pain and suffering that can be difficult to overcome. This trauma can manifest in the form of anger, mistrust, and resentment, which can make it difficult for African men and women to form healthy, trusting relationships. So let's talk men. Nisi,
Yes.
the patriarchy and sexism that exists within the Black community can create a power dynamic that can lead to conflict between Black men and Black women.
You have to break that one down for me. But
So, well, Miss Whitney might could be able to explain this a little bit more, and because she talks about the how women are seen
Hmm.
versus men.
Hmm.
weak.
The patriarchy is the system that
Yes.
the patriarchy is the system of thought that gives men the benefit of the doubt and usually blames the woman for whatever the man is doing. For instance, if a woman is sexually assaulted, they blame her for having a short dress, having, been drinking or having been alone wherever she was. Whereas nobody looks at the man and says, why didn't you leave her alone when you saw her staggering down the street? You know, it is the system that gives the authority to the man, no matter what the woman is actually capable of or actually doing. And I'm trying to keep this short because that could really, really go into long, long explanation. But one other part of the patriarchy that is important for this discussion, I think, is that for a long time, women could not conduct business because she was not considered a whole person as equal to a man. She could not own her own property. She could not drive her own car. In some countries, she still can't. But it's that system that requires a woman to be spoken for by a man. If it's not her husband, it's her brother. If it's not her brother, it's her uncle. If it's not her uncle, it's even her son. But she doesn't have her own autonomy in a patriarchal system. He is the authority. He is the end all to be all. Whatever he says is supposed to go. And there are many people who still have that mindset, and they try to impart it upon to women who relationships with women who think differently. And
So,
clearly,
like,
sexism is just what sexism is.
so
So,
do you see that at do you see that like in the maybe not in your area per se, but or in your area or online or whatnot with
do
Black
I
men
see?
toward Black women?
Oh, absolutely, I do. Absolutely, I do. Absolutely. That's actually one of the That's actually one of the things that kills me about catcalling. When a man decides that a woman is attractive and he calls out to her, anything she does that isn't a capitulation to his advances makes her wrong.
Okay.
And that is definitely an outworking of the patriarchy. She was supposed to say yes because he made the effort. If he didn't, then she left him alone. But anything other than that, she was supposed to do exactly what he wanted her to do. It doesn't matter what she wanted. And that's kind of an oversimplification, but yes, that is the overall structure of the patriarchy. The woman is not her own person. She requires, in order to have anything, that it must be represented or given to her through a male relative, particularly her father.
Okay. Wenisa, how about this one?
Yep.
Because I like the way that she explained it. I would not have been able to explain it the way that it is. So, hey,
Right.
that is awesome. I do thank you, Miss Whitney, for that. Black men and black women are often pitted against each other in the media and in society, which can create a sense of competition and hostility between them.
Oh, so recently, I saw
Oh,
a radio interview with rapper Finesse Two Times and his ex-girlfriend Erica Banks.
uh-huh.
And he was offended that she would get up and get in her phone. And he said, as a woman, she should take care of her man first. We get up. He said, when I get up, my woman get up.
Mm,
We're cleaning, we make me something to eat. You
mm,
take care of me sexually,
mm.
and then you go to your phone. And I was like, dang, you were like, I really did like you as a rapper. Like now, like I was like, how dare you? And so it piggybacks off what Whitney said. Your definition of what a woman should be doing. Your depiction of her. So you're establishing what her role should be in the relationship.
Right.
But I think the minute we sit down and talk about what a man should be doing in a relationship, we have further divided ourselves.
Mm.
Because I really can't tell you what the men's a man's role is. I'm not a man. I didn't wake up one. I've never been one. Someday I'm feeling a little bold and courageous and taking chances that they think that the boys would take, but women and men always have a role. And I've seen it so many times. What a woman should be doing. She should be soft. But maybe I want to be loud and scream like the fellas do too about a football game.
Right.
That's not ladylike. If I do it, calm your girl down. She being wild.
Exactly.
She know better than to talk to a man like that. I hear that one too. She need to respect the man what she's saying. But I'm like, why don't we just respect the human being?
Right.
And both.
Right.
But you'll see it all the time. It's always a competition.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Ms. Wright says because they were considered to be less than human, still happening today by the Karen syndrome. Hmm. Ms. Wright also said, I totally agree. Which, say it again, TaShon.
Perpetuate.
Perpetuate jealous and competition instead of relationship. Google, where you at? You're supposed to be helping me. Jalissa said that's happening now. TaShon, this is yours, ma'am. The lack of positive representation and role models for Black men and Black women can contribute to feelings of isolation and disconnection between the two groups.
The lack of positive representation. So again, I'm very careful of words, and I don't have numbers. I don't have the percentages or whatnot. But what I mean by careful, again, when people, it's like the same thing when people when I hear Black men and women, well, especially Black women, say there are no good Black men out here, or there are no good black women out here. And I'm like, okay, so you're telling me that I didn't marry a good black man,
Right.
or you're telling my other friends that are married or getting ready to get married that they don't have a good black man. So when it says the lack of positive representation, I think it's just again, we have to surround ourselves with like-minded people in communities. We have to push ourselves. A lot of us are just on social media. Let's be
Right.
honest. Our world is social. And when I say our, most of the people they're living in a bubble. Um, so to me, I don't see a lack of positive representation. I see a lack of us exploring, being exposed to what's out here. It's like when I used to teach my babies, right? And a lot of them right here in the city of Atlanta is Black history, right? But you'll
Hmm.
be amazed at the number of people who did not know the name of their school that they're going to was after, someone Black that made history. It was a lack of exposure. And I
Right.
think the lack of exposure um, to positivity, because we fill our heads with the negative has now become our norm,
Right.
and which it should not be.
Yep.
So we're constantly giving power to these words. We're constantly giving power to these stereotypes when no, it's not. It's like there's not a lack of positive representation. It's just the lack of being exposed to it. Because we came to Atlanta in 1990, when we were in California, it was sent across the country that Atlanta was the Black Mecca for businesses and Black families and Black. Um, it was Black, everything Black, right? So everybody from California was migrating to Atlanta because of the message that got out. Mind you, we didn't have social media back then. So
Right.
it was the word of mouth. It was the positivity that came, that covered the airways and that got across to us. So we traveled here. Now they didn't tell us about the half talking and the men like big booties and the hips and all of that, right? We didn't know that when we got to Atlanta. But we were not bothered by it, right? We were more focused on the positive of Atlanta and the South and so forth. So for me, the lack of positive representation and role models for Black men and Black women can contribute to feelings of isolation and disconnection between the two groups. It can, but I don't. I, I'm just a little bit
So, is
different
it
on
safe to
that.
say that instead of it being the lack, we just don't make it a point to go find it neither?
Yeah, because there are a lot of role models. We don't push enough of it. We push more on, and I'm not talking about you in general. I'm talking about
Mm.
we push more about what society is not doing, or
Right.
what society has done, or what has been done. That's why I'm never against the slavery talk. I did all of that when I was in my early 20s. I
Mhm.
went out on a journey to find myself, and I went through the whole, you know, wondering where our past was or whatnot. So for me, at this level of life, I'm now wanting to bring. Okay, yeah, there's a lot of positive role models out here, Black and white. I mean, Black men and Black women. I'm gonna uplift. I'm gonna show that. I'm gonna expose them. Right. So that's
Mhm.
why I use my social media to expose the good. I use whatever platform I have to expose the good, and I know everybody has their platform or whatnot, but for me, I choose to expose because a lot of us, my father was in the military, so I had the honor of being able to live among different races and
Right.
cultures and so forth. and even when he was out of the military, we still lived among the different. So when I so that's why sometimes that I don't relate to, oh, I didn't see that,
Right.
because I grew up seeing the different kinds of love. I grew up seeing positive black men and positive black women doing their thing, you know. So for me, I've always wanted to change that narrative.
Right.
Now and it through exposure, and that's part of the teacher in me. So I don't put anybody down for not learning, because it is. If you just been in one place, that's all you're gonna see. That's not your fault or whatnot. So it's my job to expose you.
Right.
You know, like I would expose my children to the city of Atlanta and the history, expose their parents or whatnot. It's okay. It's about exposure and growing from there. But there is, if we want to say that the lack of positive representation of role models, it's a balance there. It's a 50-50 for me, because again, it's about exposing. I'm sitting right here in front of some positive role models. I have three right in front of me, and each one of you all have a different platform. That's not a lack. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Right. So this next one is touchy. Not going to dive into it, but somebody came across the intersectionality of identities, such as being black and LGBTQ plus, can further complicate the relationship between black men and black women. I do want to say that um, with that one, regardless of what side you may be on, whatever your preference of relationship, I still think that what's going on with us, there's still this hostility, regardless of what type of relationship it is, or whatever the dynamic is. There's still, it's the hostility comes in with us as in general. Um, and I wanted to bring this conversation up because the separation is between black men and black women, but the separation truly is with us in general, as a whole, as an identity. Um, so I like the fact that you guys were able to come on and express yourself, that you're the way that you're expressing. And because again, we do need to have these talks, even going back to what Miss Whitney said, having this talk in front of those that are at the beginning point of this, because I've even to with our kids, I think we have a tendency of saying if something's making you uncomfortable, why are you doing it? And I find myself looking at news reports or just something on social media in general where that side is getting uncomfortable with the conversation, because again, just like how we want men to take responsibility and some men want women to take responsibility, they're not taking responsibility, those that have and those that are still doing, because it's not everybody, because we have people on our side that I can sit up here and say to a certain degree they can be far worse than a Karen. I bear witness to my own being worse than a Karen in public at my job, and I was nice to that person and even called their kids on me. I thought I was going to have to beat the whole family up one day. Uh,
I
yeah,
thought I was gonna have to beat the whole family up.
for instance, I'm gonna tell my kids about what you did. All righty then, go right ahead.
Mercy.
Um, TaShon, also the movement for Black liberation and racial justice must include a focus on addressing the division between Black men and Black women and prompting unity and solidarity within the Black community.
Yeah. that the movement, we have to continue. Something Johnny said
I was going
um
to go back to the comments right after this one.
a while back on his podcast. Johnny,
Oh,
if you're
okay. On
still
his podcast. Okay.
let me correct me if I'm wrong, but he said one time, you know, we know that we're faced with all of this trauma and hostility and whatnot. We know
Hmm.
that. And we may never, ever get over it. You know, we may never get over it. My prayer is always to each generation improves and build off of that and just really heal from it.
Right.
But he said it one time. He said, "What if we just apologize to each other? Simple. I am so sorry for whatever happened to you." And I'm paraphrasing what he said. I'm so sorry for what has happened to you as a black man and vice versa as a black woman.
Right.
Let's start fresh.
Hmm.
Let's start over. Let's build. Let's see where we can go from here. Because sometimes your path, let's be honest, I'm not gonna say we're never, but there is some trauma that is so deep rooted from generations ago. We may not ever get the answers. I don't know if my
Man, that's the problem, though. I think that, not to cut you off, I think that is the problem with a lot of us, that we're looking for an answer instead of just trying to. And I'm not saying that some answers are not needed to heal, but there are, and I try to say this to my dad, because the people that I know he needs answers from, they're dead.
Mhm.
They can't give him anything.
Right.
And so I'm not telling him to forget anything, but I'm asking him to talk through his trauma. And it is obvious I don't know what happened, who did what, or who didn't do what. He is so strong, he cannot talk about it. It's almost like he's a
Well,
little scared child that I
well,
can't go back and visit that.
a person has to want peace in their life,
Yes,
and you get to the point you make that offer and you leave it be, because
right,
some people don't want to face that, and for whatever reasons they do. In this case, for whatever reason, if again, I didn't experience what my grandmother them experienced. My grandparents didn't grow up on a plantation, so I don't know if they experienced that because I come from a different type of family. You know what I'm
right,
saying? And then that may, again, my experiences are going to be different or whatnot. However, I have identified what has been my family problem over time, and I have chosen the route of we're going to heal for the next generation, which is now my nieces and nephews and the second and third cousins. I have a brand new grand cousin. I don't even, is that a word now? Is that a position? Grand cousin.
man, that's what this
She the
cousin.
last, like she literally is the
Second.
last cousin. She's 3 months. So now and she's the first cousin. She's a female. So me being the oldest cousin on my mama's side, I have this responsibility to make sure that I show them what healing looks like and what moving on looks like. And moving on, and I talk to my cousins all the time, especially I talk to all of them, and it's like this is what we want to heal from, this generational habit that was passed down in our family through women. So you have to get to a point, you have to recognize what's going on, even if it's just you out of your family. No one may not understand you as a family man. Oh, girl, leave that alone. Such and such. But you, as an individual, say, you know what? I'm going to break this generational habit that
Right.
was not good for my family because I want to see my children and my children's children get through this. So we have to start with one at a time and so forth. And we have to just make that declaration. That's what we're going to do, you know?
Yep. You are so correct.
I'm sorry, Evan have
I
Hmm?
have I have two thoughts. Well, I think it's one with two parts. I agree with everything that you're saying, Coach TaShon. I absolutely do. The context of it, though, is a familial situation, a family situation. Like, for instance, I don't know what exactly you were talking about healing from. So I'm just going to throw this out there
one.
as an example of what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Suppose my great grandfather was an alcoholic. That's going to run in my family. That's going to be something that I need to get out of my system and heal from for the next generation.
right.
Nobody in my generation back may still be alive to be that alcoholic. So it's on me to
Right.
now be the better example for those generations succeeding.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I agree with that absolutely 100%. But the difference between that and the societal healing of the Black community as a whole is it's difficult for the Black community to really have a thorough healing process from slavery, its trauma, and racism because all of that is still happening.
Yeah,
It's
unfortunately.
if it's just in my family with
It's not a past, it's still present.
exactly, if
Mhm.
it's in my family with just that alcoholism thing and nobody else is doing it, it is my responsibility to stop it from moving forward. But how can the Black community as a whole really experience substantive healing when that which inflicts the wounds of division and trauma still impart them on every day?
Yeah.
That's a different type of thing. And when the quote that you mentioned from the podcast, I don't know that I saw the whole thing, but when he suggests that the Black woman say to the Black man, I'm sorry for what you've been through as a Black man, let's start over. The Black man says to the Black woman, I'm sorry for what you've been through as a Black woman, let's just start over. That is positive. There is potential in it for them to be in relation. That attitude won't necessarily heal the whole Black community because if they themselves have said, you've been traumatized, I've been traumatized, let's work through this together and be in a relationship, yes, they can then be an example. But now his brother's being profiled and he's the next one on the list of who was killed by cops. The environment wherein these traumatic things continue to happen is active, it's alive,
Mhm.
and it is unrelenting.
Yeah.
So that type of healing, we can't make it the same as the personal family issues because those personal family issues do have an end. They do have a stopping point because they are based on our choices, whether to get right or to continue the thing that still could lie with us. But societal things have to be stopped at a societal level. And that's where we're dealing with the white people need to be involved in this conversation, not just as tempered witnesses,
Right.
but as people who will actively be involved in making these societal and systemic changes. The white person in HR who recognizes that their company has racist practices, regardless of how diverse and inclusive their mission statement is,
Mhm.
needs to be the one who says something. And while there are white people now who are not racist and who will take up a position in this discussion, just as there were white abolitionists,
Mhm.
there aren't enough of them
Right.
in Congress to
Right.
Right.
make the decisions
Right.
that need to be made to shift the direction of this country as a whole. And the
So,
idea that critical race theory is racist is started just by people who don't want the truth to be known.
right. And I agree with that. So my question is again, we're gonna constantly have these talks. You know, we're going to constantly have this battle, white, black, and that racism is going to, I believe, it will continue until you get. I don't even know if you can just get rid of all the old white folks or whatever, because they're
Well,
passing it on down. You
I
know,
don't even think that's the answer with it too,
so
because
my question would be, where do we as a people? I guess that's my question. when do we say, okay, we're gonna talk, and the action, where does the action come in? Because we're gonna constantly have these talks, right?
Yeah.
On our jobs, like you said,
Yeah.
they I remember it was the last year we had the state of address for the school district about inclusion and the whole discrimination. And I kid you not, all the black teachers, we were sitting up there like, we've been treating the white kids nicely. When are y'all gonna talk to the actual white teachers? And this, I kid you not, we were all in a district wide meeting just like this. Like, we're over the talking. Like, when are y'all gonna talk to the white teachers who are mistreating, the black students or whatever? So
That's what I'm talking about. That's exactly the change
yeah,
that
so
needs
when,
to
so I
happen.
guess that's my question, is when are we going to stop having these talks and go ahead, go forward with action, or are we tipping to tiptoeing around the action,
That the answer to that question lies outside the black community.
yeah.
Oh, well,
And
Miss Whitney, I don't think so.
wait. This is what I mean.
Yeah, I see that.
I mean
It
that
has to go outside the black community.
in the sense that white people, okay, for the example that you gave, in the instance that white people need to get the lectures about diversity and inclusion,
Yeah,
it's white people in HR that need to take up the issues of eradicating racism in that company, and
mhm,
hiring one multi-diverse candidate does not mean you are not a racist company. that
Right.
exactly.
that kind of thing has to be done from not just outside, because we do have a part to play,
Yeah,
but their part is just as essential as the things that we're doing.
yeah,
Because if it only happens within the community, it's not going to change all of the whole country. we
hmm,
Right.
just like you said, we've had these conversations for years. And I think it was James Baldwin who said, yes, change takes time, but how much time? My grandfather was dealing with these issues. My father was dealing with these issues. Now here I am dealing with these issues, and my son is dealing with these issues. We've been patient. We've been tolerant. We've worked with you. We've tried to write the bills. We've tried to go through your processes. Yes,
hmm,
we understand it takes time, but how much time?
yeah,
For lack of a better word, for lack of a better word, the oppressor has to answer that question.
you're right.
And there's never going to be anybody who's willingly going to give up what they have enjoyed as a privilege for someone else's equal right.
Yep.
That's one of the reasons that this fight has maintained its potency for all of the generations that it has. So our part as black people, yes, we come to these conversations. Yes, we have these discussions. White people need to also be involved in these things, and not just any white person. I'm talking about the legislators, the people who are blocking the Justice for Policing Act right
Yeah.
after the whole world was on board with doing something about what happened to George Floyd. Okay.
Hmm.
And nobody talked about that when the Senate blocked that bill. We only learned that they blocked it because of how the news reportings were saying when Tyree Nichols was killed, the justice in policing came back for discussion, which
Hmm,
meant it had been killed.
hmm,
So now, how do we say that this happens, but this country's not racist?
Right.
It is the people who are making these laws that need to be in these conversations and in an actual place to do something. That does not negate our responsibility as black people not to go looting and doing ridiculous things for unrelated reasons. But the fact that that does happen does not negate the responsibility of our white counterparts if racism really will be eradicated at some point, but at least moving in the direction in a current societal context.
hmm.
Well, Miss Wright, coming back to your comment, I would like to say that I appreciate your mom teaching you vocabulary words, and I was just hard headed. I ran from school,
Mercy.
um, and I'm learning now at 43-year-old man that I need to I actually just went to CVS and got a book with words. I'm teaching myself new words. I'm so proud of myself. Yes, yes. So stop picking on me. Wifey says, perception of reality.
Absolutely.
Um, she also states that yes, she also had a dictionary that she had to learn. We had the
Yep.
what that encyclopedia thing was with all the encyclopedias when they come to the
Britannica.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yes,
One brand name was Britannica. Yeah,
but
we
Yep.
did.
yes, we had that. I ain't
Every
picking them.
black household had them James Evans encyclopedias.
Yeah, I didn't pick them things up. Them books was heavy.
Oh,
Oh
it was
yeah, that's how
good.
look. That's how we wrote them papers. We got
Right.
them encyclopedias.
Miss Wright threw out some hearts. Miss Williams said that country slang when TaShon was talking a little bit earlier. Hashtag changing the narrative. TaShon Collier Green. Yes, ma'am. What are some ways we can show black love and move forward from relationship trauma? Good question, sweetie. Uh, Miss Wright says, let's deal with one another as human beings to human beings. That's a common denominator to the beginning of healing. Um, Miss Wright, you're using that term and on YouTube that we be using it. Well, I don't use it. That's why I get banned in TikTok now. YT. That is so funny to me that you have to say
Oh yeah, you got
YT. It's
look.
like
You
beyond me.
Oh my
They
look. I'm
white.
telling you, you got to be very careful. That anything with a lipstick, you'll get put in Facebook jail. You know, we used to have all kind of code words.
Thank you for being proud of me, Ms. Wright. Now, I do want to answer that question before I move on to this whoa right quick, and we're going to round the show up. Yes, outside, they do need to. But I want to say this. I do think that was one moment when our ancestors during slavery, looking at 1619, where when during the war, they saw the upper hand that they had. They didn't know the laws and the legislation and all that stuff and the bills and whatnot at that time, but they saw where they were in need of a upper hand, and so they gave themselves up to fight in the war that they knew they really didn't have no business fighting in, but just to try and get freedom and whatnot. I do believe that that's where we're at right now. My wife says things about like clothes, hairstyles, it come back full circle. And I'm a true believer of that. You don't move forward until you learn the lesson that is causing you to go in a circle. We are in another circle right now, going 10 steps backwards from where our ancestors pushed us to, because one, we sold our grandma's land because monetary value was made important, and the white man came to us and said, "Hey, you know, if you sell your grandma land, I'll give you X, Y, Z, and that will help you out." For the bills and whatnot, instead of trying to figure out how do I keep this because it is very important. They did not show us that land was important. We did not go out and realize that, but our ancestors, our great grandparents knew how important it was to have that land with this what we thought was a rickety old house that we had bad experiencing in. But we're at that circle now where until we let go the idea that they are saving us, because there is a high percentage of us that feel if I stop buying this particular brand, if I stop going to this particular place, if I stop talking this particular way, if I stop funding this particular thing, they're going to take something from me. And my material things are more important than me sitting up here fighting to make sure that my son is not going to be pulled over by a cop and he may not come home. We fight that fight when it happens, but then they pacify us so quick and fast. And then we go on about our day and we hush up and we be quiet. And that's what they've been doing. And until we sit up here and say, no, I'm not being pacified anymore. And then this is what this conversation for me starts me. And when you say action, this is what action is going to be on my way after this, is doing exactly what you were just stating, bringing action and stepping out and saying, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to sit up here and take that handout just for you to tell me that, prime example, we just watched Bel Air and they just did a protest on the last show. And the protest was this black teacher was at Bel Air that's finna get a high position and was basically, not to be spoiler, telling Carlton, don't you want to be the first black child to go to this particular prestige white organization? No, I don't. Because what that does is that takes away from who I am, because I have to shut up. And that's basically what she told him, that you don't need to protest, because if you protest, you're going to cause a problem. One, you're going to stop me from getting my little high position that I've been trying to get to for the longest, and then that's going to mess you up. And matter of fact, if you do it, I'm going to tell on you. And it broke it down all the way to where they cut the protests to the point to where they just walk out of the school, black and some white kids that were a part of it, and they saw that the firing of that black teacher was wrong. But they had to be quiet. They couldn't have no posters, no nothing. And so they had to end up talking to make a long story short, they talked to the superintendent, or what they call them folks in the head of the school, principal.
Oh,
The principal. They talked to the principal, and the principal was like, okay, maybe we can come to an agreement that I'll let you guys walk out, but you can't say anything because, we don't want to. And Carlton was like, well, we don't want to cause any embarrassment. You embarrass us, not saying um, bad, bad judgment. Not bad judgment. No, evil on top of evil, or whatever that saying is. You don't do something bad to somebody else. I don't think it's bad. I think it's just embarrassing to them because it's the truth. And they don't want to accept the fact that they are doing harm to people, a particular set of people. And until we stop funding them in that sense and stop making it in our head, oh, I have to do this. I have to work this job. And I keep telling people, and it pisses me off to hear folks come in to the job and say people don't want to work. What people? I know what people you were referring to. I am going to go out and say somehow black folks don't want to work, but it's not all of us. But the pandemic showed us that I don't have to work this 9 to 5 and miss out on my kid graduating from school. I don't have to work this 9 to 5 and miss out on my husband doing this, or my child taking their first step, because you want to make sure you go to the Dubai next week because that's what you're doing. I can't go to Dubai. I'm working 12 hours, 6 days a week in order for you to go to Dubai. Me, I can't take that time off. The pandemic showed us that we can work for ourselves like our ancestors realized back in the days. And there's a scare tactic that was re-put into place. That's what I want to dismantle. I want to dismantle that scare tactic to where, dang, if I start wearing these Jordans, ain't gonna be nobody. Why not? Because the shoes don't make you. And matter of fact, those Jordans don't make Jordan. Jordan just getting money. That's it. He can't take those shoes anywhere else and start his own company. And I think that's something that we lose with each other. And the separation is there due to the fact that we looking at each other and trying to figure out who's going to stop taking the handout before the black male or the black female, or why it can't be both. And that woe goes into, I think, one of our biggest issue is our destruction of marriage. And that's what the woe is about. our destruction of marriage. Slave marriages has neither legal standing nor protection from the abuse and restriction imposed on them by slave owners. Slave husbands and wives without legal resources could be separated or sold at master's will. Why did slaves adopt the religion of their enslavers when it came down to this sense of identity? Um, the website again is in the description, where a teacher basically stated his students asked this question. I am master with suspicion there's a brass criticizing of Christian slaveholders as hypocrites or worse, as false believers. Answers to the concern are both simple and complex. For example, my short answer to the slave question is that slaves chose to convert or not to convert to Christianity, and that when slaves became Christian, they profoundly changed theology and ecclesiastical practice such that the faith justified their resistance and even rebellion, which brought me into enslaved people and divorce and African di-
Diaspora.
what's that word again? Say
Diana,
again.
Diaspora.
yes.
I ain't hear you, Sean. Say it one more time.
Diaspora.
Yeah, diaspora. Thank you. Google, here you go again. You supposed to be knowing I was struggling. Why you ain't say nothing? Former slaves' natural preference to disclose how enslaved people fought for marital dignity, to critique the hypocrisy of Christian slaveholders who served their marriages, admitted that enslaved people willingly separated from one another, potentially damaged the. Y'all said this word earlier. Say it again for me.
Abolitionists.
Abolitionists.
Yes.
Baby, I couldn't say it. You worked with me. I'm sorry. It causes, as it could fuel the perception among racist whites that people of African descent do not respect the bounds of
Centric.
Erocentric um, mar- marital
Matrimony.
Matrimony. Yes.
matrimony. Um, problem. So with all this that we came across, dealing with family, knowing that some of these Africans were Africans and some were actually from the Americas. They were indigenous people. They were just lumped together. I definitely am this old when I found out that a lot of Africans did not make it to become slaves because they died on the way here. They just end up multiplying due to birth, being women becoming baby factories. But listening to this whole thing and talking this over, uh, one problem, TaShon, can you name me one problem?
One problem with
The separation between black men and black women.
um one problem.
Yeah,
I mm,
that's a lot. Just that ain't one.
Narrow, that's like slamming.
right.
How
Just
many?
grab one. Read for it.
I
One.
would just
Okay.
so you're saying one problem within our community,
Uh huh.
we don't unite.
Okay.
We don't unite.
Um,
We can my end quote would be shut it down with our finances. If we shut if we stop, we have buying power
right.
and we have control with that. If we were to stop and
And
unite
get serious.
our dollars,
And I guess that
and
was my
I
point.
think Beryl Wright said if we stop taking accepting the handouts,
Right.
if we just stop and we just for one moment we all agree and have some form of common sense and just say stop, America will listen to us.
I
um,
believe so
prove,
too.
but police brutality. We hit them in the pocket with the pension. To our jobs, we stop patronizing. We
Hmm.
stop giving our dollars.
Hmm.
It boils back down to that finances, and they know it. So therefore, they're going to keep, as Evelyn said earlier. Don't let me misquote you, but you were saying like it's going to keep going in that circle, that conversation. We already know what the problem is. They need to know, and they need to have people held accountable.
That's
And
right.
so, for me, that problem is we don't once we can unite as a people, including the man and the woman in our household, you can just you can start right there. That is a vision of mine that we will unite. But even if we could just start in the home, become one, no matter what. I don't care what you make. I don't care what degree you have or you don't have a degree, but in our homes, we're united on things that we're going to stand, and that's how we make that change. That's that prop. So for me, I'm sorry, I went around. Unity is a problem. There's no unity.
Nisi, what about you? One problem.
Mm, communication. Like nobody wants to listen. Like nobody wants to listen. Everybody believes that their opinion is fact.
Yeah.
So, and they confuse the two. So, um, it's like I can say one thing and I'm gonna stand on my belief. You gonna stand on your belief, and then we're just like we're not even gonna come to terms. We don't listen.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't listen. So, I do think we can, with time and
Mhm.
real effort, like you said, like not just it's a problem now. We got you know, we got the juice at the time to do these things, and then it just fizzles out over and over again. And it's been repeated so many times. Go tear up the street, tear up Starbucks, tear up everything. You know, like TaShon said, hit them in that pocket.
Yeah, burning stuff down, they don't solve anything because they ain't doing it but build it back up.
And then the stupid part about it all is we still end up paying for it. Like it
Yep.
doesn't matter. TaShon might not have bust open the window at Starbucks, but when them taxes come around next year, she paying for it.
Yeah.
Or just at least go bust it up in their neighborhood.
Right.
I'm not advocating for divorce. I mean, balance. I'm just saying,
I'm
go
just
bust it up
saying,
in their community. You know, tear
yeah.
down their stuff. Mhm.
Miss Evelyn, guys, I went ahead and threw solution up there because, and I love it. You guys are already giving the solution to your one problem, so I just went ahead and just threw it up there.
So
Hold up there.
the one problem and the one solution that I'll offer as a closing thought for the problem, it's not inherent with Black people, but Black people also do this. This is a human problem that Black people also do, and that problem is I'm calling it self righteousness.
Hmm.
I am right because this is how I got to where I think. And if you don't agree with me, then
Right.
you're wrong. You the one who needs to change. And if you don't change, then you can't rock with me because I'm right. Because how I got here is the only way that it should happen for everybody.
Right.
A
Right.
lot of people feel that way. And
Yeah.
that makes it hard for them to see anybody else's experience.
Mhm.
And if that wall would come down, it would be easier for anybody to consider the other side. There's more than one right way to be. There's more than one right way to do things. And alleviating, disavowing yourself from that self-righteousness will make you a more open person in general. That would be that self-righteousness is the problem. And for some practical steps that Black men and Black women can take right now to begin the course of correction. For one, Black women have to stop defining themselves by the money that they make. They've stepped away from defining themselves with a husband and kids. Now it's all about the job, and that's what they're using to lord themselves over whatever man wants to come into their lives. They
Yeah.
have to stop that. They have to recognize that they have value inherent to the person that they are. And when they do that, like TaShon was saying, if you're spiritual, God has value in everybody. And that is the value that needs to take priority, not the money you make, not the house you live in, not the car you drive, not that suit you pay too much for, none of that. So, the first practical step for Black women, if they are guilty of this, is stop defining yourself by the money that you make. We all understand that the circumstances that happened to you forced you into the work field outside the home, and even if you didn't want to, now you have these education opportunities, now you have these research opportunities. We get that. We don't begrudge you your successes. We're just asking that you prioritize them better so that they do not ruin your humanity. That's for
Right.
the Black women. Now, for the Black men, first practical step for you guys, stop acting like Black women owe you a relationship.
Mm, mm.
When you talk to a Black woman, do not feel like she is responsible and obligated to give you consideration just because you asked for it.
Mm, yeah.
Regardless of what you do or don't bring to the table, you're treating her like an object. You're treating her like she's sitting on a store on a shelf, and you walk through one shop and picked it up and it's coming home with you, regardless of what it thinks about that. No,
Yeah.
she is a whole human being. She has feelings, she has needs, she has considerations, she has thoughts. Do not act like a Black woman owes you a relationship. Then get mad at her when she dates white men, but that's a whole different thing. Practical step right here for the Black men is do not act like Black women owe you a relationship just because you wanted one.
Awesome.
That's
So,
the problem and the solution that I would offer in closing today.
let's end this off with Miss Wright's comment. Police brutality would cease if we had life insurance because insurance companies don't want to pay out and would attach their pension. Yeah, and we don't have.
Put them in their pockets.
'Yep.
100%. I
Put them in their pocket. They
Yes,
will stop that mess.
Because that's an accident, and a lot of us we don't. I can't say I'm happy that my mom did put insurance on my kids when she did, and I never really understood it until I got older. Um, and
So
I'm
we
not
just have to,
mad
I'm
at
sorry.
her that she couldn't really explain the reason, for it. But I'm happy that she did that, and I actually got to put some on my grandkids myself. Working on that, and that is like I don't like insurance because I still think it's kind of crazy, but
Mm-hmm.
it is needed. It is needed, definitely with us and what's going on with us. And so, ladies, I do appreciate it. I hate that I couldn't bring any um men on to divulge in the conversation with us. And Miss Whitney, you was definitely correct about bringing over the other side as well. And that's something that I am getting into too. Talking, I've got a couple of potential people that are going to come on soon with
You got
that.
some white.
Yep. Yep.
You got some white. That's coming on. That's what my grandmama used to know why.
there
So
are Black people who say that I count for half of that. So
I mean, you is light skinned. It.
well, I've connected with a couple of my
Y'all light skinned it.
ancestors.
Y'all in the big house.
Miss
We was
Rice, I'm
hot.
so very
Right.
proud of you, beautiful
We
young
were hot.
We was
lady.
hot.
I'm going to have to adopt each and every one of you. Miss Wright, you ain't that old now. I know you told me you was kind of up in age, but I don't believe. But again, I do appreciate you guys taking time out of your busy schedule. Right quick. And Miss Whitney, anything come up?
Yes, I am looking forward to next month on April 12th. I will be back on the So For Real Talk to finish out the chapters of my book. That is the topic of our next discussion, the last chapters. So we're going to have the slideshow as usual, and we're going to try to get all of the videos for the weeks uploaded beforehand so that people will have time to review, to bring their questions, to bring their concerns, and to bring their expectations as we close out this book. And that is April 12th
All
at
right.
8 Eastern.
Okay. And TaShon, what about you, ma'am?
Just continue to follow at I am Trinette L. Collier and on my website, I am TrinetteLCollier.com. Did I say that right? I am TrinetteLCollier.com. Just preparing our students coming up and so forth. But thank you as always. It's always a pleasure being on. I be feeling like I had to have my notebook with Evelyn. Like I'll be over here taking notes. I love being on the platform where I be like, "Ooh, that's the one." Ooh, y'all know I'm bad with some words, but
As
thank
you
you
can
so
see, I'm
much
bad
as
with words too, so
always.
I understand. Uh, before before you say something, Nisi, I'm I found out last night that I don't know, wifey might do it, but I found out last night I'm coming to take I gotta visit you, okay?
Okay, don't stutter.
I am not stuttering. I gotta come visit. I gotta come take a visit. I gotta come sit in the chair. You know, pregnancy. What them little stirrup things is.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah,
The
That's
what?
what they call
The
it.
stirrups?
stirrup. Yeah, I
You are
need to.
not gonna be in no stir.
I need to be in
No
the
way.
stirrups. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Look,
It's
you see
yeah.
my face? I'm like, what?
Grand Canyon type stuff. I need to.
You know what?
Look, don't worry. I got you. I'm gonna be your biggest cheerleader the entire way.
She will.
I'm gonna like breathe in.
yes. Oh my God.
I'm gonna like count to three. I'm gonna say one and snatch.
That's it.
Okay.
And
So
she
with
gonna have
that
a
being
whole
said, what do
conversation
you
about
got coming up, Miss Nixon?
Well, okay. So I'm so excited. I do have a spa day coming up June 10th. Look out for the Eventbrite. TaShon has been pushing me because she already know. Look, I put down that curtain real quick. But definitely come check me out at the Plush Lab. Excuse my tardiness. I was in the process of doing a facial and a pretty kitty. But you can check me out on IG at the Plush Lab, TikTok at the Plush Lab, and if you want to book an appointment, www.theplushlab.com.
Awesome. And for me, guys, we have week next Wednesday we have another great show, and it is what is next is the 22nd, the unspoken truth about being a man.
Ooh.
And my guest is gonna be JC. TaShon, we have JC on.
JC,
That was on
the
the
panel.
yeah, the panel with us. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
yeah. Not to pick on you, man, out there. I did post it late, but still, I had some folks sit up here and heart it and give me thumbs up, but y'all scared, whatever.
Ooh.
I'm saying, let's y'all sit up here and talk about. I going back right quick. What Miss right just basically stated. Being proud of you guys. I'm proud of Black women in general, and some I was just it was a video I did want to play, but we can't play it, so we need to go ahead and go. Um, from slavery up to now, I have realized that y'all presence has always been felt, always been needed, it's always prevailed and being resilient. And y'all have not gotten the flowers that y'all deserve when it comes to our community, and how y'all have saved a lot of us men, and how y'all protect a lot of us men. And this is another narrative that I want to change, because it upsets me to see that black men, especially young black men, being so angry and saying that, oh, if you have a college degree, I can't talk to you because now you're going to feel like you're superior over me. And that is not right whatsoever. My baby going to school right now. I am happy. She is going to be a nurse practitioner, and that does not scare me whatsoever, because who knows? I might need her to check my ribs one day, and I got an in-house doctor. Y'all don't. So na boo boo.
Yes.
And I want to piggyback off of that, Lauren. I want to say, I want to change the narrative. Thank you. We need you, black man.
Yeah.
And there's so many of you all out there. You know my stance with the mailroom, and that's the purpose of. That's the reason why God gave it to me. You are needed as well, as just as much. You are, you all are our knight in shining armor. You are what we need, and we desire you all, and we pray for you all, and we want the best for you. Like as I tell Chef, let's do this. Hey, so we need you as well. So thank you, black man, for doing what you do. Now stop all that crying. That means ain't supposed to cry now. Stop all that. No. But thank you so much. Keep doing what you're doing, and change the narrative on your end. You and Lisa continue to do what you do. That's why it's like that. People always just can't even get our speech right. See, just dividing the black woman right there. Yeah, trying to overtake us.
I love you, ladies, and y'all have a
Love
great
you
night.
too.
Thank you so much. I'll
Thank
talk to
You
y'all
too.
later.
Always.
Love
Thank
y'all.
you all. Thank you all so
Bye.
much. Bye.